All right. I don't know if that'll make a difference, but
Okay. I don't know what you tried, but so we'll see how it goes.
okay.
So, any updates since we last met or spoke?
It was interesting because I now notice that when I'm sitting up and if I'm doing the scratching and get Finn to come, he comes and doesn't just come up, but he starts doing this.
Good boy.
I know.
Okay, great.
Not all the time.
You mean while you're training, or you mean just in the course of the day, like he's doing it on his own?
Both. But
Okay.
mostly when I was doing like the scratching,
Yeah,
and he was just coming up and I was rewarding him, he would not just come up, he would come up and start going like this.
excellent. Well, that was on the agenda for today, the plan for the lesson. So he's been reading ahead, I think, in my lesson plans. So good boy. So are you keeping treats on you all day long, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So anytime he spontaneously comes up and paws you, you should check, am I scratching? If you are scratching when he paws you, you should throw him a treat party.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to reward the heck out of that.
Okay.
Because that's often the tricky part, is that dogs are really good at noticing, like, this is a training session, and during a training session I do this and I get treats, and this is real life, and during real life I don't get treats, so I don't do that. So it's really important that you have treats on you or available somewhere all the time, so that if he does do that, you can say, oh, good boy, and immediately give him treats.
Okay.
All right, great. But if he paws you and you have not been scratching, then obviously don't give him treats. Right. Okay, great. So so I thought we could warm up with the nudge. I can see how that's going.
Okay.
And then if that is going well, then we're going to string the two pieces together. We're going to string together the scratching and the nudge so that you get one behavior with that. So why don't you just show me what you've been doing with him, and we'll get that to the next level.
Let me just, well, one thing we're doing today is we're training in a different place.
Oh, okay.
Because
good.
I almost always do it in the same place, and I began to think that if I go there, he thinks, oh, we're doing training now. So
yes, that's a great observation.
I don't know if the light is okay here or if that's.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Okay. Hold on, baby boy. What are you doing? What are you doing? Huh? Nudge. Good boy, good boy, good boy. Whoops. Here you go. Okay. All done. Nudge. See, sometimes he doesn't paw.
Do you have treats in your hand there?
Yes, I shouldn't have.
All right, let's do that again without the treats in your hand. Get your hands out of that treat pouch. There you go.
It takes so long for me to get them.
That's okay. Let's just try it and see how it goes.
Nudge. Oh, good boy. What good boy.
That's okay. That's fine.
Here you go.
And just feed them up. There you go. Good. Up on your leg.
Okay. Okay. All done. Nudge. Nudge.
Good boy.
Okay. Okay. Good boy. Good boy. It's right over there. Want one more? Come here. Good boy. All done.
Okay, good. So that looks good. So I think because he's used to you having the treats in your hand, it changes the way that your body position and everything looks to him. And dogs are really good at thinking that the cue for behavior is what position we're standing or sitting in or how we're holding our hands. We think the cue is sit or down or nudge, and they think the cue is like she's leaning over, she's looking at my butt, she's got her hands in a fist. That's the cue. So he's a little confused. So what I want you to do for the next few rounds is do just what you were doing, where you don't have the treats in your hand and you say nudge. And as soon as he jumps up and paws, even once or twice, start praising and reach for the treats then. So
Okay.
we'll expect a little less of him because he's not sure. He's like, should I do this? I don't know.
Okay. All right.
So just ask for a little less.
Finn. Nudge. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah. Go. Come on. Okay. We got another one. Good boy. You are a very good boy. Yeah, you got it? Okay. All done. Yeah. Nudge. Yes. Get up there. Nudge. Good boy. Good boy. Come here. Don't forget. Yes. Come on. Come on. You get one. You get another one. And I'll give you a third one because you're such a good boy. Okay. Ready? All done. Nudge. Yes. Come here. Come here. Get up. Good boy. Good. Here you go. You got one here. You got two there. I put two out by accident. Yeah. Good boy. Good boy. All done. Nudge.
Good.
You are a very good boy. You're a very good boy. Come here. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, didn't mean to have it so far away. Good boy, all done. Nudge. Yes, yes. Come here. It's right there. Okay. All done. Nudge. Wait. Nudge. Yes, that's the way. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Good boy. All done. Nudge. Good boy. Where is it? Where is it? Is it there? Huh? Where is it? Where is it? Very good. Very good.
Good. All right. Nicely done. So, oh, sorry. Let me go grab my dog. Come here. Find it. Nope. So I brought him in here in case we need to demo, but he's decided to amuse himself. Okay. So that looks really good. That was the best one yet because you said nudge. He jumped up, he pawed you, he stayed up there. So that is all exactly what we want. So that's great.
Okay.
Probably I'm going to have you keep going with that this week. So you want to, like you said, train in different places, move it all over the house. You know, the living room, the bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, whatever, anywhere you happen to be that you might be scratching, you want to train it there. Different times of the day or night, different body positions. I don't know if sometimes you're sitting, you know, with your legs crossed, or sometimes you're like lying down or whatever. Just try to vary it up and train it to make it look as realistic as possible. And you're going to do this with no treats in your hand, just
Right.
like you did. It was perfect. He got it. You know, you just trained your way through it. He gets it that if you start praising him, that means the treat is coming. And, you know, eventually, so he'll just learn to stay up there, because what's the point of jumping down and jumping back up, since you're, example, jumping up. Thank you. Because, you know, he knows the food is going to happen on your legs, so he might as well just stay there. So if you keep treating on your lap, that's definitely the key for keeping him up there. So I would say that's the main homework for now, for that version of the behavior, but that looks really good.
Okay.
So let's see what the scratching looks like.
Okay. All right.
Good boy. Nice.
Boy. Good boy. Good boy. Come here. We got one for you there. And we'll get another one for you there.
Yep, good. Get him up. Good job.
One more. Good boy. Good boy. You're such a good boy. Yeah. Good boy. Good boy. No, they're in my hand, dummy. Whoop.
All right, good. That looks great.
Boy. Yes.
Let's
So
do
just
2 or 3 more of those.
Okay. Good boy. You're fantastic. Stay right there. Don't you move. Yes. Here's another one. Here's one more. Okay. Okay. Did you drop it? Dummy. What you doing? He's more interested in finding the treat that he dropped on the
Well,
floor.
you know.
Oh, what a good boy. What a good boy. Come on. Okay.
Okay, good. That looks good. So one of the questions that I have that I've been thinking about since I watched our last training video is, when you are scratching yourself when you're not aware of it, what are you usually doing? Are you like reading? Are you doing something else?
I could be reading or watching television. I could be in a group of people that are sort of chatting. I could be talking to people.
Okay.
That's usually what it is.
Okay. All right. So just writing that down. And another thing that I've noticed is, so we've talked about, you know, you're scratching and you're looking at him. In real life, you wouldn't be looking at him. I noticed that often you're like scratching really vigorously on your upper arm. When you're doing that for real, are you scratching that vigorously? Or do you usually sort of start out like more like this, and then you like over time you get into it more? Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be good for you to start trying to make the scratching look more like real life.
Okay.
If it's possible, you guys don't have like a Nest, do you have any sort of security camera system in your house by any chance?
No.
Okay. If you did, that would be great, because then you could just go back and look at video of yourself scratching when you weren't aware of it and see what it looks like. Another thing, Another thing you could try is asking you live with your husband, right? You could ask him to take some video of you when you're scratching when you're not aware of it. That would be great. Then you could
Okay.
look at it later. So if that's possible, ask him to do that.
Okay.
But you should also ask him to describe what it looks like. Like, you know, if you have, we usually tend to have typical patterns. So if it starts with you sort of, you know, you're on your iPad or whatever, your phone, right? Blah, blah, blah. And you're going, And are you starting like this? And then over time you're doing this, or, you know, you pick your hand first and you work your way, or whatever it looks like. Ask him to describe in as much detail as he can, or, you know, if you're aware of it, to think about what does it look like, or if you have a therapist who's seen you do it, anybody who can give you information about, like, if you were a visitor from another planet and you wanted to know, like, what do humans do on planet Earth? And you were describing to them, well, humans sit around and they look at these lumps of plastic, and while they're doing that, you know, they use their right hand to, like, pick at their left shoulder or whatever. Get as much detail as you can.
Okay.
And if there's more than one, because I know sometimes mostly you said you scratch with the right hand on the left arm, but sometimes it's the hand. Like, I haven't seen you doing any of the hands picking or scratching. And if that's a thing, we should start incorporating that in too. So that's the main homework for that piece, is do some research on what it looks like. You're scratching right now. Is that the way that it sometimes starts?
That's a very good example. Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So what you did is, let's see, well, you can look back at the video later, although if I'm talking, it might not show you, it might just show me. So what you were doing is you had your legs crossed. Let me move further back so you can see. Let's see. Oops, I have my iPad in the way. Here, I'll put it. I just want you to be able to see my lap. All right, so you had your leg crossed, you had your left hand here, and you were talking to me, and while you were talking, you went like, oh, now kid's missing the way. Move out of the way, thank you. Okay, you went blah, 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 like that. Like, it was a very sort of gentle kind of scratch on your forearm. So that kind of thing is helpful, because we would like for him to interrupt while you're doing this, as opposed to by the time that you're, like, really, you know, taking off skin or something. So at the beginning, so keep doing what you've been doing with the training, but try to make it more subtle, like start to reduce the intensity of the cue. It's sort of like the difference between a stop sign means stop, a red light means stop, this means stop, the word stop means stop. So we can learn that multiple different cues all mean the same thing. So he can learn to jump up on you if you're doing this, but also to jump up on you if you're doing that, or if you're doing this. But you have to train, like, oh, all of these things actually all mean stop, right? And once you know that a stop sign, once you know that stop, if I say, Carol, stop, that means stop. I don't have to say stop, right? It all means the same thing. But we want him to learn that the intensity of the stimulus doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how big a stop sign is or how big a red light is. Once we know that that means stop, we do it.
Right. So if I were, for example, just to go like this, you're right. He's just not even paying attention to it.
Right. So what you should do, we can start doing this right now in the session, is you're going to get him going. You're going to warm him up with the one that's really familiar to him. Reward that. Do that. Reward that. And then you're going to, like, do the same thing. Do you think he's more familiar with the vigorousness or the location of the scratching? Because I've seen you do vigorously on your arm too, right?
Yeah, I think the arm, he notices the arm, the lower arm.
Okay. So what you probably want to do is start with the vigorous scratching, and over time make the scratch a little bit less intense. you know, in the same location. So let's start with, say, the upper arm, vigorous scratch, and then you can start to bring down the intensity of the scratching, but in the same location, and we'll see if he keeps cueing off of that.
Are you ready for more? Huh? All right, let's see what happens.
Just stop and give him a break. Pause for a second. All right, now start again.
He's confused. He's
He's
looking
thinking
at
about it. That's all right. And I think also usually, good boy.
Boy, good boy, Finn. I'm sorry.
Also, usually he's doing the other side. So that was another thing. See, he always thinks he has to go around to that side. So you also want to train on that side.
Okay. Good boy.
So let's do a couple to help him over his confusion where you have him on the other side so we can train that side because that's his confusion.
This side.
I think. Yep. So get him over on, what is that, your left? Whatever
Right.
the opposite of the side, thank you, is that he's on right now. And
right.
And what you're gonna do is for this, we are gonna use like a treat lure just twice. Get a treat in your hand. So you're gonna be scratching with this arm, have a treat in the.
No, I was scratching with my left arm.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm mirroring you, but
Got
yeah.
it.
So scratch with the arm that you usually do. Scratch with your right hand on your left arm.
Yeah.
And in your left hand, you're gonna have a treat. And as soon as he jumps up, you can give him the treat. If he doesn't jump up, you can lure him up. Do you want me to demo?
Well, it's just that wouldn't the treat be in my right hand?
You can use the right hand if that's better. Use whichever
Or
hand
should
makes
it be the hand that's
fine.
scratching?
Let me see if I can demo.
Just a minute.
Because if we're acting as if he doesn't know this, like he's never done it before.
Right.
Because he's just got a moment of confusion. So let's see. Okay, come here, Kismet. All right, which is the case for Kismet, right? This is not a behavior I've trained him on. So she says, and then he jumps up. All right, you remember this from last time? Thank you. Okay, so if I'm scratching, yeah, you can hold the treats in this hand, either hand. I'm gonna hold them in this hand. So I'm gonna go scratch, 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 and then I'm gonna lure him up with the treat.
Got it. Okay.
But you can do it whichever is easier for you. You could also, I think you would have to stop scratching though. If I was holding them in this hand, scratch, 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 but oh, he's on it. But if he doesn't, so scratch for a second. If he jumps up, good boy, treat, treat, treat. If he doesn't, show him the treat, lure him up, and give him the treat. Let's try that a couple times.
Hey, Finn, can you come over here? Yoo-hoo. Hey, over here. Finn. Come on. Hey.
Show him the treat, lure him up.
Come on. Yeah, good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy.
Do that one more time.
Oh, wait, I gotta get another treat. Yeah, good boy.
Good.
Is it okay if he goes over here to get the treat?
It's all right, but it's a great idea to show him the treat and lure him up so that he learns he can do it on either side.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you might, if you're sitting, you know, in an airplane or something, he might not always have access to that side. We want him to learn he can jump up no matter where he is.
Yeah.
Good boy.
Good boy. Stay up there. You want one more treat? I'll give you another one. You were very good. Very, very good. No, right over here. Good boy.
Good. Remember to treat on your leg.
Yes. No, I didn't scratch yet. Nope.
Tell him all done.
All done.
Good.
Oh, good boy. Get one more. I'm going to try it without the treat in my hand. Is that
Yes,
okay?
that's exactly what I was going to recommend.
I get something on my finger, though. Thank you. Good boy. Good boy. Come on. Good boy. No, over here. Come on. Here. Good boy. Good boy. Here we go. There we go. Good boy. Good boy. There, it's right there before you get all confused. It's right here. It's right here. It's right there. All right. Let's try some. Hey. Oh, I'm not supposed to. Good,
There
good,
you
good,
go.
good, 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 good. Come on up. It's right up there. Oh, it's right up there. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah. Oh.
That's all right. Just try again.
Hey, yes. Come on. Get up there. Come on. Here it is. Good boy. Good boy. There you go. Yeah, there's another one. And one more for good luck. Good boy. All right.
So don't bury it up too much yet. He's not ready for that. I noticed earlier you were talking with me and you had your palm facing up and you were scratching on your forearm, which isn't one I've seen you do before. But so there's a lot of different variations of the scratching behavior in real life. But he's really only, I think, familiar with you doing this and this, right? So because for him, being on the opposite side of you is different and being in a new location is different, that's enough difference for now. You want to always train. Have we talked about the 3Ds, distance, distraction, and duration? All right.
No.
Let me, I'm going to grab my notes and so I can, and then I'll talk you through that. So we can give him a break. Just tell him all done.
Well done.
Good. All right. So the difficulty of dog training is the 3Ds, right? It's not difficult to train a dog to sit. It's difficult to train a dog to sit and stay while you're 20 feet away at a carnival, right?
Yeah.
So those are the 3Ds. Distance is how far away you are from the dog or how far away they are from the goal behavior. So for example, if Finn is right next to you and you're scratching, it might be easier for him to run over and jump on you versus if he's across the room on a couch or something. So that's distance. Distraction is a really big one for dogs. That's anything that's different. You can think of different or distraction as being the same thing. So for him, just being on your left side versus your right side, totally different. He has to learn those both apply. What else is happening in the environment? If you're in a different room, if your body is in a different position, if there are people around, if the TV is on, if there's a podcast playing, if there's a bird flying by the window. So anything that's visual, auditory, smell, location, movement is very distracting to dogs. So we need to eventually proof him to all those different kinds of distractions. But for right now, the main distraction we're going to work on is just you and how you're presenting the cue.
Okay.
So that's distance and distraction, and duration is how long they have to do the behavior. So we've already started to work on that a little bit, where we're working on him pawing you repeatedly, that sort of persistence. But anytime you add in a D, anytime you change one of those elements, distance, distraction, or duration, you have to make everything else easier. So when you're training, yes. So when you're training in a new room, you're going to make the cue as obvious as you can. And you're not going to wait for him to be persistent with his scratching, because that would be another D, right? That's a duration. So, so you have to get the behavior really strong and consistent and robust before you start changing one of the elements. So you just change one element at a time. Once that's outstanding, then you can change another one. Okay. So the homework for this week is, we talked about with the nudge, and the nudge, that's all changing distraction, right? That's all, I was talking about, like, you know, do it when you're in different rooms in the house, different body positions, different places. So that's all the difference or distraction element. And also doing it without treats in your hand is also going to look very different to him. And so for the scratching, first, you're going to train it with the familiar intensity. Well, let me think. Yeah, first train it with the familiar types of scratching, but in different rooms, and how different rooms of the house, different times of the day, different body positions.
Okay, just a minute. You're a good boy.
So, you know, so train it with this or this, but train it around in different places. Meanwhile, while you're doing that training, you're going to be gathering your research from your husband or your memory bank or therapist or whoever has seen you scratching about what does it look like, you know, so that you can make notes on that. So later when you're training, you can be like, oh, okay, so I usually start with my wrist and then whatever it turns out to be. So make some notes on that. And different types of, because I'm sure you have more than one scratching pattern. So maybe you do it different with your left than your right. I know you said mostly your right hand, but sometimes you do it with your left.
You caught me with my left. So.
Yeah. So that's good. That's helpful information. And then, so suppose you're training for the first time at the kitchen table. Let's say, I'm just throwing that out. But if you, someplace you don't normally train, and you're scratching up here, and he's great with that, and you're scratching down here, and he's great with that, and you're doing it on both sides too, because that's also different with him. So definitely train both sides.
Right. Hush. Yeah.
Then, if he's doing awesome with that, then you can start to reduce the intensity of the cue. So you might have done this in group classes with Leah, where, like, did you, when you first started,
Are you all right?
Yes. This was not part of the plan for this lesson. I just fell and all these treats came out. I tripped over my dog. So usually,
it's not funny. Are you sure you're okay?
yes, it's really
How's
funny.
the dog?
Oh, he's fine. Of course, that's why I hurt myself, because as I was falling, I was like, oh no. So I threw myself out of the way of him. So I didn't hurt him.
Do you need a few minutes to just be sure you didn't hurt anything?
I'm all right. I just banged up my knee a little bit. But usually when I'm doing a lesson with somebody, I don't usually have my dog around. So I'm just thinking about you and Finn. And I didn't realize he was lying so quietly next to me, as opposed to scanning out the window for birds and squirrels. So.
Do you need
Oh dear.
Do you need ice for your knee?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. So, no, I forgot. Oh, right. So in a group class,
Oh, be
I'll just limp over here. No, he's drinking water. Now he's out of the way. So in a group class, you know, I always tell people that I am a klutz. Like, dog training is a physical skill as well as a, you know, mental skill. And I always tell people, like, I'm so uncoordinated. If I can do this, anybody can do this. So I just gave you a little example of that. So often when you're starting to train a dog to sit, you're holding the treat to their nose and you're luring them up like this,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
then they learn that that is your sit cue. So you start out with that as your sit cue. Find it. Right? So you start out by saying, you know, that, and then they get that, and then free. And then you start to sort of abbreviate it. So instead of like starting all the way down here and moving up here, you start a little higher and you do it. Sit. And then they get that. So it's the same idea that you probably did that free with, with sit or with down, where you started out with down and you're going like this and then like that. And then eventually you can just say like, you know, or whatever. So it's the same idea. Where you're going to start out when he's doing really well and you're like, I am so sure that every time I do this, he's going to jump up. Yeah. So then you're going to start out with a little bit smaller. So you're going to start out like with a lighter scratch. And if he jumps up, great, throw him a party. And if he doesn't, then you make it more intense. So start out with it a little bit lower key, and then you can amp it up. Okay. And when he's doing well with that, then you can just see, like, will he jump up with a slightly slower and less intense scratch? When he can do that, then you can start to do it even, you know, then you can start to move it down toward your elbow, because I think he's used to it being up here. So move it down an inch. Can you do that? Move it down an inch. Can you do that? Move it down an inch till you're going to your forearm. When he does your forearm, then you can start to rotate your arm halfway. He can do that. Can you do this? Can you do that? So you just try to make the steps between it look so small that he doesn't notice that you've changed something. Okay. Okay. So that's the next step for that.
That's so subtle. I mean, it's not subtle, but it is subtle. I mean, I understand that you're sort of kind of weaning him off intensity.
Yeah.
But okay, you're a smart dog, right, Finn?
He is smart, and he's a fast learner. I mean, you're training a lot with him, which makes a huge difference. But also, I think he really likes it, and he's smart. He's learning quickly. Okay.
So with the nudge, is there the same kind of that one we mostly want him to do this more? Is that, or is just once or twice okay?
Well, we eventually want him to persist with it and do it a lot. So that's duration. But right now your homework is to work on distraction, is to work on doing it in different places and stuff. So we're going to let the duration go for now. And as long as he's doing the behavior and you've changed some other element, then you can reward him for the first or second scratch. And eventually we'll try to get the duration going again.
And the nudge should be on like both, I mean, we could do it on both sides in different places. The whole,
exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the homework for this week is to create more variety in your training.
Okay. All right. You hear that?
He says, aye, aye, Captain.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
So I wanted to check into, you know, we haven't done any training on the dog reactivity, and I don't know if that's like, are people out with dogs in your area? Have you been able to work on that? I
have been able to work on that a little bit. And You know, the trick obviously is for it to happen when I have him on a lead, you know, when we're walking, as opposed to some dog just shows up in my driveway and he goes bombing over there. But
Oh.
we did have a very good, someone was walking, two people were walking towards us. One person had what looked like a greyhound and some other kind of very large, that kind of dog. And the other person had a German Shepherd. And one of them was clearly a puppy and was really out there, legs, the whole bit. And Finn was really good. I had the clicker really gets his attention. And I clicked. At first he just went, and I clicked and I gave him a treat. And he basically just did not go over anywhere near them, stayed with me, made a little growl, but because my husband said, well, there was a little growl, but it was a little growl. He basically didn't, it was really good.
Okay, good.
I was pleased because I wasn't, you know, they were having a problem controlling their dogs.
Okay,
So,
great.
I thought that was good.
Okay, and you did, so you had your treats and you had your clicker with you. And did you do the thing where you, because I know sometimes it can be tricky depending on where you are, were you able to like move to the side and let them go past and not close the distance? Okay, that's great.
Yeah, at first they were coming like this, and then, you know, I just would get him, he'd look at the dog and I'd click it, the dogs, and I'd click it, and he'd do it, and I'd praise him a lot, and then they just kept walking. And we kind of kept walking, and he kept turning around, and I'd click him and whatever. And once we got by them, he growled a little. I think he was terrified of them. But then he got by them and he wanted to have the last word or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought he was, you know, Mike was all ready for him to go. He sometimes lunges towards them, and he didn't. Absolutely didn't. I felt control.
That's great. That sounds really good. So one thing that you can do, try this before our next lesson, is, so you did a great job with clicking him and praising and giving the treats when he sees the other dog, or dogs in this case. The one thing that I would suggest is not to keep moving. So you stop, because remember how we talked about if they're coming this way and you're going this way, you are closing the distance faster, you're making it more intense. Also, dogs think better when they're still usually than when they're moving, because there's, you know, more things to think about. I'm moving and I'm also trying to eat and listen and stuff. So again, if you think about distraction, distance, duration, that applies to this too. So the distance is closing twice as fast if you're moving than it is if you're standing still and they're moving.
Got it.
And also more distraction. I'm moving and I'm also trying to pay attention to the clicker. And so you stand still while they're going past. If you can, move further away. So again, increasing the distance in this case makes it easier, right? The closer he is to the other dogs, the harder it is. The further away, the easier. So you stand still while the other dogs are going past. If you can move further back away, great. If not, just stay put. Click and treat till they are like out of sight.
Okay.
So try that. But otherwise, that sounds really good.
Now that's interesting, because my husband said, just keep walking, Carol. As they were coming towards us, he thought we should just keep walking. So now I get to tell him, no, we're going to stay still.
Yes. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think often people think that because, I mean, I've had reactive dogs. I know what it's like. You're like, oh, I just want this to be over with. Like, it's so stressful and you just want to like get away. And the dogs often want that too. But from a training standpoint, it's better to stop and stand still and mark and reward so he can think about what he's doing. You're taking some of the intensity out. You're not closing the space as much. So, you know, from a management perspective, you might just feel like, I just want to get this over with, but he's not learning what you want to learn if he is still growling or whatever. So.
It's kind of like he's not really disengaging. I mean, once he's more paying attention to me and the treats and the clicking and the nice words I say, he's disengaging from these dogs that he saw before. So sort of keeping that going is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember when we did the lesson on that, we've done a couple lessons and I was talking about like, oh, he's licking his lips. Oh, he's panting. Oh, he's looking away. Like all of those really subtle indicators that he's still stressed out, those can be really helpful for you to look at. If you are with your husband and you're busy clicking and treating, you could say like, please take some video of Finn while I do this. So later you can go back and look at it and see like, what is his body language telling you about his comfort level? Because what you're trying to do with this training is really not change what he's doing so much as that you're trying to change how he feels. And when you change how he feels, that is going to change his behavior. So if, you know, you can have a situation where a dog is not barking or lunging or growling because they've, you know, you've yelled at them and they've learned to keep quiet, but inside they're still completely freaked out, right? Inside they're still, you know, their heart is pounding and their pupils are dilated and they're panting, you know, and their face is full of wrinkles and their body is tense. Like, you know, that dog is not happy about the situation, but they might not be growling or barking. So I know you haven't done that with Finn. I'm just using that as an example.
No.
So Finn's behavior is pretty subtle and he's a little bit harder to read because he's small and he's furry. So it's like, if you have a very smooth coated dog, you can see if they're concerned and their brow wrinkles, it's very easy to see the wrinkles. With your dogs and my dogs that are very fluffy, you have to rely more on things like licking their lips, licking their nose, their eyes, like are they looking away a lot? Are they turning their head to look away? Body movement and posture. Is he standing still? You know, is he stiff or is he loose and wiggly? You know, things like that. Is his tail up or is it down?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if you can try to keep an eye on his body language in the moment, that's great. But if you do have somebody else around who can take video of him the whole time, then that would be great too, because then you can see, oh, this is where he starts to tense up. This is where he starts to relax, you know. Do you see the whites of his eyes? Do you see him starting to do a dry pant? Things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
All right, so I'm just thinking about in terms of when he'll be ready for a next lesson. He's been learning at a pretty fast rate. You know, so my goal with him has been to keep him going, so he's ready for the next step. I don't want him to stay at a plateau and but I also don't want to start before he's ready. So we're training on distraction. So you're changing the way that you scratch and you're going to be training all over the house. I think, you know, another like 5 days or something is probably about right. Does that seem right to you?
Okay, so that's like, what day is today? And I must confess, with this new
Thursday.
world we're living in, I cannot keep track of the days.
I know. Me neither. The other day I had a client who had a Wednesday evening, last night it was scheduled. And on Tuesday morning, he contacted me to figure out the tech and we figured it out. And then I was like, see you tonight. And I sent an email with the thing for that night. And then I saw that I had scheduled the lesson for Wednesday. And I was like, oh, this is for tomorrow. This should be tonight. And I went and I changed it. And then later I was like, no, that's tomorrow. And I had to go back. It's so confusing. So